This week in Arsenal, the Gunners battle for a 2-2 draw at the Etihad. Another Arsenal player gets a second yellow for delaying a restart. Miles Lewis-Skelly makes his Premier League debut, and a major injury might turn the title race on its head. Let's get into it.
Maybe we'll have a good surprise for you. Maybe we'll have a good...
Apologies for that. Welcome in to episode 71 of This Week in Arsenal. It is September 23, 2024. As always, I am Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow the pod at This Week Arsenal. And today we are here to talk about a just supremely stressful, but also very encouraging 2-2 draw at the Etihad. There's a lot to go through for obvious reasons, and we'll get into all of that. With me today, I have two very illustrious guests to discuss the match. One of them is here. One of them is running a little bit late, but the one who is here is Ben Mattinson, who you can follow at Ben_Mattinson_. Ben, welcome to the pod. It's lovely to have you on. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you on. So I guess, we should probably just jump into it and talk about the Trossard second yellow, right? And I think that's one of the overarching headlines from this story. The other one we can get into when James gets here. And, so I like just to kind of tell the story very briefly of the first half as context, right? We got a punch in the mouth to begin with, right? City scored the first goal through Haaland pretty quickly. And after that, we were kind of fighting from behind. Calafiori scored a screamer to get us back into the match. And then we took the lead, made a 2-1 with, a hilarious Gabriel move on Kyle Walker. Very reminiscent of that time that Tyrone Mings absolutely just took the piss out of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on a set piece. And we went 2-1 ahead. And, during this time, Leandro Trossard had gotten a yellow card earlier in the match. I forget, was it for a tackle, like a shirt pull during a counter?
Yeah, shirt pull on, I think it was Savinho.
Yeah.
When he was running ahead of him, yeah.
Yeah, so he pulled Savinho's shirt, got a yellow for that, and then, right after we went ahead, Trossard goes up for an air ball, for an aerial duel, and kind of, I don't want to call it a shove, but like he uses his body in midair. I forget which City player went down, but player went down and Trossard saw a second yellow. And I'm told that the coverage in the United States from NBC initially said that the second yellow was for the shove in midair before they changed it to the second yellow being for kicking the ball away from a restart. And that's kind of the narrative that Premier League and English media and the PGMOL are running with too. So with kind of with all that being laid out as context, what do you make of the decision, and just how disappointing is it to once again see a big game turned on its head because of pretty needless red card?
Yeah, not happy with it. Obviously, I hated it when I saw it happen. I was like, seriously, again, after the Rice thing, because it felt like once that happened, everyone was talking about the whole ball being kicked away. So many games that happened and no one got a card for it. And then again, when someone is already on a yellow in one of our games, in probably the biggest fixture of our whole season, these obviously the home and away ones, it's happened again. But I think the first yellow, I'm like, okay, it's fair. It's a little bit soft, but it's one where I looked at and I thought if Savinho didn't stop running, he probably wouldn't have got a yellow there. He probably would have just carried on. But I think because he stopped running and then looked at the ref, then the ref gives the yellow there. And if it's for the collision, Haaland did the exact same thing in the first half. And you can argue what Haaland did. He had a longer run up. He's 6'5". He's massive, clattering into, I think it was Saliba. I can't remember. It was Saliba or Gabriel, one of them.
Yeah, Saliba.
Yeah, and he didn't get a card for that. So if that's the case, the biggest issue I've got is the lack of consistency. So if that wasn't a yellow, that shouldn't be a yellow, especially if you're already on a yellow. The second yellow, I feel like, has to be more, like there's no grey area with it because it affects the game so much. And then it then becoming about the ball being kicked away, I was like, well, he kicked it away in less than a second from when the whistle was blown. And in a loud stadium, you won't hear quick enough. You might not hear it at all, or you won't hear quick enough to make a decision. If your leg is already swinging and then they blow the whistle, it could be like that. And like, well, you're not going to stop, are you? So yeah, it's harsh to me, and it's annoying because that ruined what was a really entertaining first half, and then second half, shut up shop. And they just attack after attack.
Yeah, and I think the consistency subject is a really good one to dig into, right? Because you mentioned Haaland clattering into Saliba to start the match, and he did it again right after City scored the second at the end of the match. They kicked the ball off, or we kicked the ball off, and then Haaland just steams right into Partey. It was almost like an NFL safety tackle, the way he just kind of shoulder barges him. So he was doing a lot of that in the match. Like you said, Doku kicked the ball away. And I think it was Dan Critchlow who was doing like a comparison of kind of the length of time between the whistle blow and Trossard kicking the ball away and Doku kicking the ball away. And, Doku had much more time than Trossard did. It was honestly kind of reminiscent of Van Persie at Barcelona.
Yeah.
That second yellow. And it's just really disappointing because we're a petty fan base, right? And so we've ever since the Declan Rice yellow, their second yellow against Brighton, we have been all paying attention to how often that gets called in the Premier League, right? And as far as I can tell, there have only been 4 times when a player has been called for kicking the ball away or given a yellow for kicking the ball away, and that's Rice's second yellow, Trossard's second yellow, a yellow card for Saliba, I think against Spurs, and then Bruno Fernandes got one for United. But the second yellows are only Arsenal, so it's just massively disappointing. And it's you never really want to talk about an agenda against Arsenal from the referees, but I'll put it to you like this. I think we are now in a place where it is too easy to call into question the impartiality of these referees. Michael Oliver is someone who pretty infamously at this point went to the UAE to referee some UAE Pro League games, was technically paid to do that by people who are, there's a demonstrable connection between them and the ownership of Manchester City. And this guy's now given Arsenal 7 red cards, which is the most of any team he's refereed, and he has yet to give City a red card ever. So it's disappointing, and the lack of consistency is making the game a worse watch.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. For me, it's when I look at that decision, it's just, again, I hate after a game talking about not the game, like talking about decisions that were made and talking about what the referee did. And it should be all about City's performance and Arsenal's performance. That's it. Like, I don't want to talk about anything else. I want to talk about individual players, the managers, the tactics, everything. And there's 2 games now this season from an Arsenal point of view that really were on course to be in a win. And I'm not saying, like, we can't say for certain that they would have won, but if that was the case, let's say Arsenal won that game 2-1, 3-1 or something, and the other one was just a 1-0. You're talking like 1 goal conceded, 15 points. That's like a ridiculous start to the season.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not the case. But we've just got to bounce back and just forget about dodgy decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I think hopefully, there begins to be a movement where people realize that red cards are more for protecting players' safety and protecting the integrity of the game, and we stop seeing kind of needless red cards like this. But so James has shown up. James, good to see you, my
Hello,
friend.
boys. Hello, boys. What did I miss? Nothing serious, I hope.
Nothing serious. We were just talking about the refs, but we're gonna
We
move
could be here
on.
all evening. No worries, no worries. I don't hate the fact that we do not have to have this discussion that we seem to have every week, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I find myself not having the energy for it like I used to. So, tell you what, we'll move on to the other big headline from this match, which is, news broke earlier today that Rodri is pretty much set to miss the remainder of the season, or at least a huge chunk of time, with an ACL injury. So I just kind of want to hand this off to you guys. James, I'll go to you first. What do you think is the significance of this, and how much does this tilt the title race in your opinion?
It's massive. He's their second most important player. To be honest, it's hard to argue against him being their most important player, but the problem is, one, Haaland has taken it to a new level this season. That is the best goal scorer we've ever seen in the Premier League, and two, they no longer have a Haaland backup, whereas Gundogan just about can do Rodri's role. But again, he's getting on, and he cannot do Rodri's role as well as Rodri, and there's a long season ahead. I just think also it is ridiculous because some of the Man City fans, I don't love the culture of celebrating injury, but Man City fans who are celebrating Ødegaard's injury look ridiculous now because you've got Arsenal fans giving it back to them. As I say, I don't think it works well either way. But now they're crying about saying, "Oh, how dare Arsenal fans," when it's actually the same people who are doing it before. I think yesterday was a prime example of why Rodri is important to City, because I guess they weren't playing so much in the first phases because we were playing so deep, but they had no solutions. What Rodri is very, very intelligent at doing, and it's so hard to quantify this, but is choosing the right pass. And he always knows the right pass and small details like knowing what foot to give it to a player to give him the tempo to be able to drive at someone. And if you've got whoever else was in there, they just looked lost. They really did not know what they were doing. Whereas Rodri in that game, I think would have likely dropped in for one of the centre backs. Then we wouldn't have been able to afford the time on the ball that we gave to Diaz, Akanji or Stones, because they are less threatening. They have less ideas. I think Rodri would have found a solution. And had he still been on the pitch, I think it would have been a much, much harder game, despite how well we defended.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I'm in terms of the discussion about kind of the celebration of the injury. Obviously, you don't want to run out there and treat it like a win or anything like that. I will say there were a lot of people who are coming out and being very expressive, shall we say, about Odegaard's injury. I remember a couple of years ago, even people were still celebrating about the Saliba injury. So it's important to remember that. But yeah, I think I would go so far as to say that Rodri still is City's most important player, just because the way I see it, if Haaland were to be in a situation where he can't play, right? I think City have shown that they can find ways around that. I think without Rodri, they're not going to be able. I'll rephrase it. I think without Rodri, they'll just be that little bit more susceptible to counters.
I
I
hear
think,
that, but
yeah,
just to interrupt, Sham, the one thing I
sure,
would say is think about if Haaland was injured for this season. I agree with you on perhaps a one-off game. Maybe if they were playing Liverpool at Anfield tomorrow, you'd say they'd rather miss out on Haaland than Rodri. But over a season, you're missing out on like 70 goals. As good as
yeah.
City are, they cannot replace 70 goals.
That's fair. I mean, he is at 10 goals already this season. So, um, but Ben, how do you see it? You know, do you agree that this is kind of a big impact to kind of the title race odds, and you know how you're feeling about all of it?
Yeah, it's definitely huge, and it's a lot of the non tangible stuff as well. When you think of throughout the games, he's the leader in that team. He's one of the main leaders in that team. So losing that, you could see it affected them in the game when he went off injured. I think for a bit they dropped their intensity a lot, even though
His
the players they had on the
composure
pitch.
as well. They had
Yeah,
no
exactly.
composure.
Yeah, and definitely from the second half, Kovacic was obviously the deepest midfielder, and the amount of touches he had around the edge of the box. That zone, if Rodri is there, he's one picking out better passes, and if the ball falls to him there, he's hitting the target and he's going to score. Like there was a few moments that Kovacic had a shot, Walker had a lot of shots, and I was just getting confused, almost like this is Pep Guardiola we're talking about. Why is he not? It was even a moment when Foden came on. I thought Foden came on way too late from their point of view, and where he wasn't receiving the ball outside of us, like the defensive line, that often. And if he was there, and Rodri and maybe De Bruyne or whatever, they're hitting the top bins eventually. You know, they had like 20 odd shots that half. But the game aside, like, yeah, missing Rodri is going to be huge for them, because I would argue is the same with what James said. I think with Haaland, the difference is now they don't have Alvarez. They don't have another striker, really, unless I'm forgetting someone. They've probably just play Foden as a false nine or something, or I don't know. But I think when they did that before, they had like Mahrez on the wings. They had like better. Savinho is good, but he's not like a reliable goal scorer like that. So I think they would struggle. But I don't know. The start of this season made me feel like they're going for a different play style anyways. That meant Rodri is less important, but I don't know if they can sustain that over the whole season. So yeah, it definitely puts the title into our favour a tiny bit, I would say.
Also, again, sorry to interrupt, but when you are right, they were playing in a play style that didn't need Rodri, but I still think people forget that he's not just like a system player. Even if they played a completely different system, he would still be probably top 3 players on the pitch. So you've got that combined with, again, Haaland can't play 70 games this season, so they will have to find solutions. And I don't think right now their squad depth is unbelievable. And considering we've just got through, hopefully, a very, very difficult patch, I cannot emphasize how impressive we have been over the past few weeks. To draw away against the Etihad, to draw away against Atalanta, that was, to us, a game that realistically I would have taken losing that if we drew this game. So we've drawn both of those games. We drew at Spurs' stadium, and we beat Spurs at their stadium, and we beat Aston Villa. That is stupidly impressive, without even considering the context that we had to go through. So I think that will give our players so much confidence, seeing that, hang on, we can do that against City with 10 men. We shouldn't be scared of them, nor should we be scared of anyone, because home or away, we can bring it to everyone. And our record against the Big Six for the past 2 seasons now has been so impressive. 8 wins, 5 draws, 0 losses, I think, in the last 13.
Yeah, no, it's been magnificent. And kind of turning the page to just kind of a chat about how good this run has been, right? We, like you said, we went to Villa and we won. We went to Spurs and we won. We drew against Atalanta. We drew against City. And those last 3 games were back to back to back. And we did that with Jesus being out for a little while. I know some people might dismiss that, but I still think Jesus is a useful player, even if he's not at the height of his powers. We did that without Tomiyasu the whole time, without Marino. Calafiori was injured for a bit. Odegaard was injured for a bit, and still is. Who else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone, but I'm not remembering it.
Even Zinchenko was out, but
Zinchenko
who knows if he would have even made the bench at this point.
Yeah, Tierney was out if you want to throw him in there. But yeah, we did it. Oh, and also Rice got suspended for the Spurs game.
Yeah.
I want to reemphasize, Rice got suspended for the Spurs game. I've had people in my mentions for a tweet basically saying, like, because I said Rice suspended, people assumed, oh, he's not still suspended. Whatever, not a thing. So we did all of that, with a bunch of setbacks, with a bunch of less than ideal circumstances, and we're still coming out 2 points behind City. Like we just talked about, now they have, a massive problem that they're gonna have to deal with over the course of the season, and things are beginning to open up for us. So, I'm just so impressed by that record, by what we've done, and it really shows that this team refuses to be beaten, and I think that's almost as important as winning. Not losing matches, taking what you can. That tends to prove to be the difference.
Which is exactly what we wanted during summer. In summer, the what was released to the media was the suggestion that we need to raise the floor of this team, and we've known this for a while. We've been kind of bringing in players like Rice, Raya, who were starters, but the backups for these players weren't good enough, because Rice was a Xhaka replacement, starter for starter. Raya was a Ramsdale replacement. We know the Ramsdale situation was difficult anyway. But the problem is we were signing players, and we still, with all due respect, and they've been very good at their respective clubs, having Nketiah, Nelson, and Smith Rowe, who Arteta didn't trust. That is the long and short of it, is that he didn't trust them in the biggest games. Whereas now you look at it, and he brought in players who he did trust. Calafiori was there. If White's not available, then Timber's there. So the floor of this squad now can draw against City at the Etihad. And that's not even the ceiling. Once we have the ceiling of the squad, it's scary what we'll be able to do. But it's nice that they identified that as the problem and we solved it. And it's easy to say, yeah, we could have done more during summer, but that was what the aim was, and it looks like we've done it. And Sterling is another example of someone who raises the floor, I think, because he is a better player than Nelson. He will take time to get up to speed, in my opinion, but when he does, I see no reason that he can't be playing Champions League games and midweek games against Leicester, Southampton, etc., which Arteta just did not do with players like Nelson and Smith Rowe.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like you said, we're not even near our ceiling. Marino has yet to come back. Calafiori, I still think, is kind of bedding in, adjusting. Sterling, I think, isn't 100% fit. Jesus, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that as well. And, Tomiyasu isn't back. So, kind of with all that being said, Ben, I want to kind of get your thoughts on this as well. How do you feel about what we've done to start the season? How much do you think that sets us up to, really have an even better go at the title than we did last season?
Yeah, I think it's the pretty ideal start. Like I was saying before, it is so close to literally winning all of our games, apart from the Champions League. Just a couple of decisions being different, and we could have won all 5. And when we looked at those first fixtures, that's one of the toughest starts we've had in a long time. Even like Villa away, like Villa have been a bit of a bogey team. They've got so many players that are either ex-Arsenal or Arsenal fans or the manager or whatever, that all turn up when we play them. Wolves, first game of this season, I know people will be like, oh, it's just, they're just Wolves, but a very physical team. There's a lot of players of really high intensity. So, having them, then Villa, then obviously the Brighton game as well. And the Brighton had started so well. So it's huge that we started and we're unbeaten at this point. I think the Atalanta game, a lot of people kind of tried to write it off a bit because they were focused on the City game. But I think what Arteta is probably looking at is it's about the mentality of the team. We don't want to be beatable. So we want to get a result against Atalanta because that sets the tone for the season. If you start off early and you just kind of say, oh, that game doesn't matter, then what if you then play City and then you don't get a result against City? Well, you just throw in 2 games. So instead, we've gone into that, and against the best pressing team in Italy and one of the best pressing teams in the world, we managed to get a draw. And I know people are like, oh, well, it's only Atalanta, but they also slapped up Liverpool and Leverkusen 3-0 last season. So they're not a joke team, and they're very physical. So having those 3 games in a week is, that's now where I'm looking at the next few games. Like, we need to rest a lot of players because that was a tough week.
Also, only Arsenal would get bantered for like drawing away against Atalanta. Do you know what I mean? This past week, I have never seen goalposts be moved more than this past week. They've found ways to banter us for like drawing at the Etihad, drawing away against Atlanta. We got fucking bantered for beating Spurs at their stadium. Like, people used to say, "Oh, Arsenal soft team." Oh, whoa! Don't show too much physicality. Arsenal too hard. Arsenal. It's like, you know what I mean? We can't win. We can't win whatever we do. And the same thing is going on with some of the decisions where it's last season with Kovacic. I know I wasn't supposed to be in, but last season with Kovacic, the red card that wasn't given in the sport of the game, but this season, because it's Arsenal, it's hang on, letter of the law. And this is the thing that annoys me at the moment, is it goes from the media, from the fans. Just with Arsenal, it bothers people. And I don't understand why, and I don't think I ever will. But all we can do is rise above it. And if and when we do eventually win the title, I hope our fans are insufferable. I hope our fans are louder than everyone else, because we will deserve it for all the shit we've had to deal with. And we will deserve it for just the years of suffering. And part of the reason is because people are so used to us being the banter club, and they've got nothing to banter us about. So they just make up new shit. When United are losing midweek, and then they go, "Oh, Arsenal sat back." It's like, focus on your own problems.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be really cynical about this. I think people do that because it drives clicks and it drives traffic. That's true. That's what it is at the end of the day, right?
We're talking about it, aren't we? So,
sorry, what was that?
It worked, didn't it? Because people are talking about it. So
yeah. No, and that's the thing. It's always going to work because I think we're a very proud fan base, and we'll always kind of back our team and stand up for them, especially right now. And this is one of the best Arsenal teams I think that has ever been. So of course, this is a team that people are going to go to war for, the way that they're going to war on the pitch. And I do think it's funny because guys on Twitter is one thing, right? At the end of the day, it's some dude behind a profile picture and a keyboard saying whatever they want. The way that City players were absolutely rattled yesterday was hilarious. It was great to watch. For the first 10 minutes after the match ended, I was actually pretty upset, right? Because we were seconds away from leaving the Etihad with a win, which would have been amazing under the circumstances. And then I started seeing how Haaland was behaving, and I started seeing the interviews and the quotes that were coming out, right? I want to turn to Haaland first, right? This guy has won the Premier League twice with City. He has won the Champions League. He has hit 100 goals already. He's had 10 goals in 5 games this season. Why are you so self-conscious that you feel the need to, barge into Saliba, start the game, pull out your best Cam Chancellor impression on Thomas Partey after you score the second goal, peg the ball at the back of Gabriel's head after the second goal, run up to a 17-year-old and scream in his face, "Who are you?" And then go up to one of your manager's best friends, and the former assistant manager at your club, and say, "Stay humble, huh? Stay humble, huh?" By the way, if anyone watched that clip, I hope you saw the look that Ben White gave him, because
it was so funny.
Yeah, someone's going to show Haaland that clip and say, you were seconds away from joining Rodri on the treatment table. So so be careful next time.
He wouldn't care as well. Ben White would not care. He would. I can just tell. He'd just do something, just trip him up.
Yeah, Ben White would be well aware that the next games are Southampton, Leicester. He'd be like, "I'm going Ibiza for a few days."
Literally, yeah, we'd be loving it. Like, oh, best fine or whatever. If he gets a fine, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Also, Clive, I just want to say Clive from the Arsenal Vision pod also very nicely said about it was such a cowardly move, him throwing a few other things, whatever, but him throwing the ball at the back of Gabriel's head is such a cowardly move because you wouldn't do that to his face. All game, he scored, but most of the game he had absolutely nothing with Gabriel. Gabriel and Saliba were treating him as they always have. He doesn't get any money out of them.
Yeah.
So after his friend scores for the equaliser, not the winner, by the way, he should be running straight to the halfway line, and he chucks the ball at the back of Gabriel's head. It's petty, and again, it just shows that he couldn't win the mental battle between them. He couldn't win the physical battle, so he's resorted to just like cheap shots. And I just found it really interesting, also the narrative that came from it, because flip the roles, and if it's Ben White or one of the Arsenal players doing these things, the narrative would be insane. The narrative, if it was like Ben White who threw the ball at the back of someone's head instead of running back to put the ball on the spot, Arsenal would get cooked for it. It's saying pathetic behaviour. It's Haaland, so hey, shit house, hey, funny guy.
Yeah.
Look, what fine, it is what it is. But the way people act about City, I think, is pathetic. They've made a mockery of the credibility of this league. And you'll get so many Big Six fans going, "Oh, City beat Arsenal, well done." It's embarrassing.
Aren't people over it at this point? I'm over it. Like City have won what 6 of the last 7 titles. Like, aren't people sick of that? You know, I remember.
No, they're scared. They're scared of Arsenal winning it, and especially Liverpool fans. Liverpool fans are the worst because they know that as soon as Arteta wins a title, we've almost achieved. And if we can win a Champions League as well, then he's achieved what Klopp has achieved. But to them, that is the best thing they've ever done. But so yeah, they're desperate for City to win, even at their own demise. It's weird.
Yeah. Wait, Ben, were you going to chime in there?
No, I was just going to say it's like with Grealish and versus someone like Sterling, like how the media treats them. Like, there's been a whole big thing about it, but you think with him like being drunk and being out partying and all this stuff, and it's always like, oh, Jack the lad and all this, and then Sterling like, oh, he's got a tattoo of a gun on his leg, it's the end of the world or whatever it was. Like, it's just that same thing, but like everyone online is just talking about how Haaland was like, oh, great shithouse and all this, and every time I saw something to do with Arsenal, it was like, oh, it's disgusting behaviour, these dark arts, it's horrible. I'm like, they both did it. Like, both teams did it, and City have done it for as long. Remember 2 years ago when we played them, pushing and shoving people around, and because it felt a bit like we were the little brother, in that type of game. We felt very inferior to them, and now we're kind of like level with them. Even more so. They seem rattled. They don't like that there's a genuine challenger now.
It's like a bully. Like beating someone up for a few years, and then the next year the kid gets bigger and starts fighting the back, and then the bully starts getting really upset and starts blaming other people. It's literally what it is. Because for the first time, and Arteta has kind of been building us specifically for these type of games. He's been building a physical team who can both match them for strength and also match them for intensity. And they didn't get any change out of us. And City were rattled because so many years, as you say, Ben, Bernardo Silva, but you watch him today, the way Jesus treated him when he was on the pitch, it was so embarrassing. And then for them all to come out after the game crying about Arsenal being too physical, it's like, get over yourself, honestly.
And also the savviness too that Arsenal showed, right? When Miles Lewis-Skelly got a booking before he made his debut for telling Raya to go down, right? And
is that what he got booked for?
Yeah, that's at least
really.
That's why.
I didn't clock what it. I didn't know specifically what it was.
Yeah, he was warming up, or at least this is what I've heard. They were warming up, and then apparently Lewis-Skelly, because I guess Raya was like, limping or like felt something, and they're trying to kill a little bit of clock. Lewis-Skelly yelled, "Go down, Raya," and then Raya went down, and the physios came on. And of course, Michael Oliver has to let it happen. So he did that. And then he walked over to Lewis-Skelly and showed him the yellow card.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Is that cardable?
I don't know. I've not
It
seen
is
that
now.
before. Seen them give it to someone on the sideline, but it's normally because I don't know, they're saying something to the officials or whatever, not to one of the players.
I watched it happen. And I was like, oh, like what are they going to give the card to Arteta for now, right?
I
And
thought
then it
that.
was and then I was like, and then I saw it was Lewis Skelly, and I was like, what did he? He's just a kid. Leave him alone.
That's so funny, man. Hopefully, hey, look, we've got Bolton on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's very exciting. I look forward to seeing. Hopefully, Miles and Ethan will both be on the pitch there because, as I say, we've got a few games where some youngsters can really hopefully shine in the coming weeks and give the old boys like Saka. What a weird thing to say. A rest.
He's played 4,000-minute seasons the last few years. I'm sure he feels old. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to see what those two do kind of moving forward this season. And I think we'll probably get to one or two of them later on in the pod when we do hits and misses. But I just want to talk about one more thing before we move on to that, and that is, how do you think this is City being sore losers right now in the moment? Or do you think this is an indication that they also feel the tide turning, right? Because this was kind of the encouraging thing for me, right? Where, I think the last couple times we've played them, right? The 0-0 at the Etihad and then the 2-2 at the Etihad this time around. You had Rodri coming out and saying they don't want to. Well, I guess he did this when they won the title, but Rodri came out and said they don't want to beat us. They came to the Etihad, played for a draw, and then you had Holland doing what he did. You had Akanji coming out and saying, we're not happy with the point, but they are, even though they were all celebrating. Also, Akanji celebrated the Trossard red card like it was a trophy. And then there was, I think it was Bernardo Silva, who also basically came out and said the same thing, right? Meanwhile, Pep, I think, played it very cool during his presser after the game, which I think kind of tells me that the players at least are very scared. And even if they don't want to admit it, respect Arsenal now, are worried about Arsenal, and probably consider yesterday a let-off. So I just kind of want to get both your thoughts on if this is kind of an indication of things to come or if this is just them being upset on the day.
I'll go to you first, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both. I think when you look at how they've responded to it, they can see that I think a couple of seasons before, like I said, we didn't feel like we were on the same level as them. Then when you beat them in the Community Shield and then the first win of the season and you get a draw as well, suddenly it's 3 games they haven't beat us. And I think as those games went on, they start to realise, I think Kyle Walker said it last season maybe, that he actually praised us. It was like, we're an impressive side and what they've done and everything. I think it was when the title was already done that he came out and said that. But I think they know now that we're not going anywhere and that we are the biggest challenger that they've got. And I think there's a lot of, you can argue last season that I know we didn't win the title, but we were the better team over the course of the season in terms of how we played and how much we had improved from the year before. And I think the biggest thing with that was De Bruyne not being there, so Haaland wasn't as good. But on paper, I think we were a lot better. So now you're looking at where they need every little inch they can get, every little margin they can find. So I think this is why we're getting a bit more of this, and maybe the players are a little more rattled. I don't know. There's something about City though. I just look at them like they don't really have any rivalries. Like Man United, I know Man United fans, some of them will claim if they're from Manchester, fair enough, but most aren't, and most of them would rather Arsenal not win it than City win it, because we're just used to City winning it. Like, oh, whatever, they'll just win it again. But yeah, I just think people, they don't want to see another team win it, and they're so used to winning that when they experience one loss, the ugly side comes out. So yeah, I don't think they're the best losers, the players. And it's funny because when we hear about Rodri talking about mentality and stuff, this is how they come out. It's just if it doesn't mean so much to you, just move on from it. Like, you got your point, whatever, move on. But I've heard so many quotes from players about, oh, it doesn't mean that much. It's like, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me. Well, if it didn't bother you, wouldn't say anything. So you seem a little bit rattled, but yeah, let's just move on.
Yeah. James, how about you?
I think that's actually one of the biggest victories that I take from the game, because yes, it's so painful that we drew in the last minute of the game, almost the last kick of the game. But the way that City have reacted, to me, shows that they feel like the tide is turning, as you've both already said. So that psychologically, and now them losing Rodri, I think is going to hinder them for the rest of the season. And I think, as I say, I think they came into this game, especially with our midfield woes, etc. I think they came into this game really thinking they were going to make a point. When they scored early, they had their tails up. They were like, all right, let's punish them here. Because they've not done that to us. Even the last time they beat us, the last time they beat us was the 4-1, right? At the
I think so,
Etihad.
Yeah.
A while ago. And that was a point. They made a point there. It was a big statement to say, you are still not us. And I think they really wanted to do that yesterday. I think Haaland especially wants to say, we're not on the same level. And yesterday proved, when we sucker punched them twice and could have got a third goal because Gabriel also had another chance, that we really are right on their level. Really are right on their level, if not higher, because away from home, they will not perform that well at the Emirates. I'm convinced that they will not do that well at the Emirates as long as we have 11 men on the pitch. Because while there were 11 men on the pitch, as soon as we did get those 2 goals, they looked rattled. They were so surprised. They thought, who's this? Because in past years, they would have scored and we would have capitulated because we were mentally fragile and because they're absolute mentality monsters. But it didn't happen this year. We said, right, okay, it happened. It was a bit of a mistake from Calafiori, a bit of a mistake from Gabriel, but it happens. Pull together, and Calafiori scores. Wait, who scored the first? Sorry.
This is Calafiori, yeah.
Calafiori scores an unbelievable goal. What a finish, my friend. And I actually, not to toot my horn, but I said before the game, it will be interesting to see his personality in a game like this, because Arteta's spoken a lot about this sort of thing, but he strikes me as someone who will really step up in big games, because for a guy who's 22, we've seen it already. He's got so much character. And he won't shy away from these games. And as I say, part of that meant that he did make a mistake, but he made up for this mistake. And I love his attitude and his personality, which shined through on the day. And then big Gabriel, and he is collecting away goals in these big games like Infinity Stones. City at the Etihad. Who are we missing? It's just Manuel Old Trafford, I think, right? Because he scored at City at the Etihad, Stamford Bridge. He's scored against Spurs at their stadium. He scored at Anfield. Old Trafford. We will be there. We will be there when he crashes it in on them. And then Gabriel, we will be having serious discussions, because some people a few seasons ago were trying to get this guy out of the team. He's going nowhere.
Good thing too. Yeah, no, I remember, I think it was George who said this, George V from Cannon Talk. And he said, Calafiori is the kind of guy who's going to walk into the Bernabeu and not care about where he is. He's just going to play. And you really got that sense from him yesterday. So, when he just smashed in, that absolute worldie to make it 1-1, it was super exciting, but also just, I think that really is.
Timber the same, may I add. These guys are both, I think Calafiori is still 22, younger than Saka, which is insane to think. Then Timber on the other side is 23-ish. So that whole defense must have been, no, Gabriel's 26, 27 now. But apart from that, the defense was very young, and you can't tell, which is a testament to just, I guess, how well we've scouted, but also how well this team has developed. Because Timber and Calafiori, for saying that was both their first game of this nature. I guess Timber's was Spurs, but he looked just as good in that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, massive take from that. And then it's a headache. It's a selection headache, which is a brilliant thing to have. But Ben White, you do not walk back into that team, unfortunately.
Yeah, White is going to have some work to do to get that right back spot from Timber. And I do think we can mix and match now a little bit depending on the situation. I think Arteta, while he did come out and say that White was playing with a knock, I think he also was worried about Doku causing problems on their right hand side. Maybe wanted more of the defensive 1v1 security that they got with Timber. But yeah, just kind of on City, and then we'll kind of get back to praising some Arsenal performances. I think they're terrified. Just watching them throughout the match, Rodri was going down every couple of seconds, feigning an injury, crying out for the ref, was trying to get Havertz sent off pretty quickly. And then, every time the referee blew his whistle, he had 8 or 9 City players surrounding him. Kyle Walker is so far up the pitch trying to talk to him that we just gave the ball to Martinelli to score that first goal. And then I saw something I've never seen before with City, kind of, I want to say the 85th, 86th minute, and that was head starting to drop a little bit because these guys were just taking shots from 25, 30 yards out because it seemed like they were running out of ideas. And I don't think anyone has ever really done that to City. So they didn't respond well to that, as you can kind of clearly see from the things that they've said. And then on the flip side, they spoke to Gabriel after the match. I think it was a Brazilian outfit that did that. And they're kind of asking him kind of about, the vibes and kind of the very conflict heavy nature of the game. And Gabriel's just like, oh, that's just normal, war and provocation. And, it's a draw here. And I think he said, we're waiting for them at our place. And that's it. Super, super cool about it. And looked like he wasn't bothered at all. And so, yeah, I think we are winning the psychological battle against City, which I think will kind of prove to be very telling in the future. Let's do hits and misses real quick before we kind of have a look ahead. So for those of you who aren't familiar, hits, just, it's a player who has had a really impressive performance on the day, someone whose stock you feel has gotten a little bit better as a result of that performance, someone that you trust a little bit more. And then misses is a player whose stock has gone down on the day, someone who you're a little bit more worried about, not necessarily a bad player, not necessarily someone who sucks per se, but because of the nature of the result, because of how important this is, I would encourage you guys to get creative with your misses, and it does not have to be an Arsenal player. I'll leave it at that. But we'll do hits first. So, Ben, seeing as it's your first time on the pod, I will hand it off to you, and you may pick your hit.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Calafiori for me. I think you were speaking about before. I was saying to someone earlier, there's something about an Italian... we were talking about the whole Barclays man thing, and there's something about an Italian scoring a worldie that is such a Barclays moment. And it was really him announcing himself. I've watched him at Bologna, and there was a lot of games where if they were drawing and it was late on, he'd be getting the ball from centre back, coming into midfield, passing it, taking shots from outside the box, like really taking responsibility to be the guy. Bear in mind, he'd be 20, 21, and taking responsibility to go win that game. And I think he's translated that over to Arsenal. His first start away at City, arguably the best team in the world, and he didn't look phased at all. There was moments I thought he was a little overexcited, I'll be honest. I think we've got to coach a bit of that. It's similar to Gabriel. He's so aggressive. You kind of need to tone it down a bit. And I think that's how Savinho got the best of him, because he commits a bit too early. Then Savinho can get around.
Knowing when to jump, basically.
Exactly.
And the thing is, the fact that he does have the ability in him to jump like that is important. So you don't want him to lose that, but you just want to polish it and just let him know when and not, because you're right. On that specific Savinho moment, Savinho knew what he was going to do, and that left a lot of space. Also, Partey for the goal, I think, was quite poor. I think, again, we've spoken about whether Rice should be there, but I think had Rice been in the number 6 position, he'd have mopped that up. But anyway, sorry, I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I made a point earlier. I posted something I was saying about how I prefer someone who can do that, who can jump and is over aggressive, to coach it down rather than to coach it up. I think you look at Kivior, it's the wrong way, where he's too shy, he's under aggressive, and it's not. Some coaches are really good at coaching aggression. That's why when I saw that he's been linked with Juventus with Motta's quite good at that. So that would have been a good, a different manager that can get the best out of that is for someone like him. But since he's been here, we've not seen much improvement on that. He's a little bit reckless, but he's too lightweight. And then you look at Calafiori, you're never going to complain about that with him. Is one thing that a lot of people, obviously, he's still new. We've not seen it yet, but he is like close to Gabriel aerially. Defensive aerial duels, he's up there. I think he's stats-wise, he was better, but I think if you consider the leagues, he's probably about the same. Not got it in the attacking sense, but with a bit of coaching, Gabriel didn't come in well, to be fair, I think, was his first season, did he get 5 goals, or was that the second season?
I think one of them.
Yeah, it was either the first.
But he came in January, no? Or am I making this up completely?
I'm not
Gabriel?
sure.
No, he didn't. He came in summer, didn't he?
Yeah, Gabriel's a
With
summer
the same
signing.
season in Partey.
I saw somewhere, I can't remember where it was. I think it was that the Sky Sports, like they've got the what's it called, the Saturday Social thing, and they do like their 11s. We're talking about Gabriel and saying Man United fans would have him. They literally wanted to sign him when we got him. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was I remember it was Napoli, Man United, Everton, and us, and we got him. And it was Napoli as they were the main ones. But it's laughable, some of the stuff you see. But yeah,
I have so much love for Gabriel because people have said this recently on Twitter, he was the first guy to buy in on the project, the first serious signing who's lived the whole time. Yeah, some people wanted Maguire over Gabriel, and that's why they don't get given the time on podcasts like these.
Yeah, it's mental to me.
That's a question I should start asking people before I bring them on.
Yeah, what do you think of Gabriel? What do you think of Havertz? All right, now you can carry on. But with Calafiori, I just look at him. He gives us so many different options. Playing as a left back, you can coach him into like the perfect left back for our system, and he's going to compete with Gabriel at left centre back at some point as well. And we've now got a genuine option there with Kivior. I think maybe he might end up playing the right side, but yeah, I'm really excited to see a lot more of him.
I can take over from here, and actually, two things I wanted to say. Interesting what you made about the Calafiori-Kivior comparison, because I actually think weirdly it links quite closely to the Ramsdale-Raya comparison, where Ramsdale didn't want to be as aggressive and have such a high starting position, and Arteta tried to coach it into him. And eventually Ramsdale said, can we meet halfway? And halfway, unfortunately, isn't good enough for Arteta or for what we need. And it's a harsh truth, but that's the truth. Now, Kivior's the same. Interestingly, it's actually there's a lot of parallels because it's in terms of like defensive aggression, whether it be goalkeeper or left back. Kivior might be able to do the halfway, but again, halfway isn't enough. When you've got a man-to-man press, you cannot have one person half commit because that seed of doubt in their mind, and if it cannot be coached out of them, which again, as you say, I think Kivior struggles, then it's going to lead to a moment like Calafiori. And it's quite possible that Calafiori, the reason why he was there wasn't because he was over-aggressive, but was because he had doubts in his mind whether he should have gone or not. So perhaps when he first joined, he'd have been really tight on Savinho and maybe made a foul or who knows, tackled him. But because he's been here a little bit, he might have said, should I jump, should I not? Didn't jump. And then last moment thought, yeah, I'll do it. And then Savinho beat him. So I think he will definitely be someone who you can coach into that. And to your credit, Ben, and to those listening, Ben wanted Calafiori in something like March time when there were absolutely no links with the player. So shout out Ben for that, because it's a beautiful tweet if you go back, and he called it perfectly. Straight on to my player who I think deserves a shout out, of course, is Martinelli. A bit of a different one, and it wasn't the best Martinelli you'll ever see, but I just think, considering the criticism he's faced recently, it was really refreshing to see how he played. Because look, second half we can almost write it off, but another thing that was interesting is he was kept on instead of other people because Arteta trusts him so much defensively. Because the defensive output this guy gives, you saw him in the second half, right in City's half pressing, and then sprinting back to left back to help out. And he gave himself cramp because of it. And then there was a really funny clip that came out of him absolutely screaming at Akanji. And I've never seen Martinelli like this. So I think, look, early signs, and maybe he'll go on to another 17 games without a goal or assist. But hopefully that game will do stuff for his confidence. And I thought he did look closer to his usual self. So yeah, of all the players, I could shout out Raya. Raya's been the best keeper in world football this season. But I'd like to shout out Martinelli. But you still have someone to name drop, Sam?
Yeah. So back. I'll go back to Calafiori for 1 second. Calafiori is someone who I have a very emotional investment in, for obvious reasons, and yeah, I just, again, I love kind of the mentality that he plays with, the bravery that he plays with, how he seemed completely unfazed by the opponent, and that's something that we've lacked in the past. I think there have been several occasions that we can point to in previous years where we've gone to City, where we've gone to Liverpool, where we've played in very big games, and we just seemed a little scared, and you never get that from Calafiori. As for Martinelli, I completely agree with that as well. I think we've been very harsh on him the last few weeks because, against Spurs, he had a couple chances, didn't put them away. Against Atalanta, he had probably the two best chances of the game, didn't put those away. And I think people are starting to get on his back a little bit. And to an extent, I understand it, right? Because these are the moments that you have to take advantage of. A win away at Atalanta, I think, probably changes things for us a little bit in the Champions League. But at the end of the day, he is the guy getting into those positions in the first place. And I think that's lost on people sometimes in terms of just how important that is, and how that in a way is a little bit more replicable than kind of how successful you are in on goal itself, right? So I think he's showing a lot in that respect. And I think just in terms of the defensive output that he's showing, the work that he's putting in off the ball has been really, really great to see from him. I do think that alone is starting to make him a much more preferable option to Trossard when you're picking a starting 11. And yeah, I think there was a little bit of a connection kind of flickering between Calafiori and Martinelli in that first half, which I really liked. And yeah, just the fire that he plays with, like you said, James, when he was yelling "shut the fuck up" at Akanji a couple times. I loved it. That stuff is always going to make me buy back into a player. So yeah, I'm really glad to see that from him, and I think the goals will come. It's just a matter of confidence, and when Calafiori and Marino are both on the pitch with Martinelli, I think we are going to see a completely different player, and someone who goes back to that form that we saw in 22-23. Before we move on, Ben, did you want to say anything on Martinelli?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree about the defensive side, and it's huge for this system. I think sometimes I'm a bit of a victim of this, where you look at the good side, the on-the-ball side of a player, when we're looking at, who should we sign in whatever position? Loads of people speak about, for wingers, that we should sign this player or whatever player. Like, for example, someone like Leao, who's like really good as an outlet. And he's kind of one of those that I wouldn't mind just for that side of kind of like, how can I put it? You'd accept not being good defensively because of how good he is on the other side. But with how Arteta plays, it's so important. And Martinelli last season, I remember, I think it was against Bayern, there was a couple of moments where he wasn't getting tight enough to the winger and then the cross will come in, or the fullback. And he's did it a few times towards the end of last season. I think the Villa game was another one. And now we're looking at it this season where he's contributed so much. He's basically playing as a left wing back at one point. And then he's also the only outlet a lot of the time. He was the guy trying to bring the ball out from defence and basically run the whole length of the pitch. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much ground he covered as well. That'd be interesting. But it's huge. And if he can get some goals soon, it should do his confidence wonders, and because we need, if you can get both sides, both wings that dangerous, it opens up space for one of them because we're less predictable. I think last season we're too much on the right to Saka. But if you go both ways, and like what you were saying with Marino and Calafiori on that side, that should really, really help him get a lot more combinations and service around there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, I think our left-hand side, I think anyone would tell you, has not been as functional as it needs to be recently. So it's just it's a bit of a shame that we haven't had those two guys fit and ready at the same time to contribute. But once that happens, I'm really looking forward to the results of that. Okay. I've stalled for long enough. I think my hit is going to be a package deal, and it's going to be Miles Lewis-Skelly, and then in parentheses, and Ethan Nwaneri. And I mentioned earlier that Lewis-Skelly got that yellow card for coaching Raya from the sideline and telling him to go down. But in addition to that, I just love the way that Arteta trusts these two in really big situations. And, we saw Ethan Nwaneri come on to kind of close out, the North London derby, and I think he did a great job of that. And then, to defend a lead at the Etihad the way that he did, right? To be trusted to do that and to come on, and I think do a really good job and stand up to, some of the best players in the world, and, deal with Holland and deal with Foden and deal with Grealish and stuff like that. I think he really made a great impression on his Premier League debut, essentially. I'm really encouraged because obviously there's been this running narrative that Arteta doesn't trust the youth players, that he'd rather play the kids. And, with the number of defensive injuries and defensive substitutions that were required yesterday, I was kind of worried after a point, because when we put Kivior on, I think Kivior is one of those players who Arteta doesn't necessarily want to play in that situation. So after that, when we had to make another substitution, I was wondering who it was going to be, because I still wasn't sure if Arteta was willing to put Lewis-Skelly in. But sure enough, he did that. He did a great job. I don't really fault him for City's equalizer. I think it's just a really good sign of things to come, because we're going to need those two players, especially in the coming weeks, without Odegaard there, with, guys like Partey having already a lot of minutes relatively in their legs.
These guys are 17. We have no expectations of them for a good while. So the fact that they are already contributing at 17 is incredible. And over the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, who knows how much, but it's so exciting what they're already doing for us.
Yeah. So, it's just really exciting and really encouraging that we're starting to kind of ease these guys in, and they both look absolute players who, like I said with Calafiori, like you said with Timber, they're not fazed by big occasions. And I think that's something that really you either have or you don't. I'm super excited for what they have to contribute this season. But Ben, how about you? Thoughts on Miles and Ethan?
Yeah, I'm so excited for both of them, and I know that narrative about Arteta not playing the youth players. I think you've got to add context to it, and I think there weren't any of that age, the next age, well, the age up, we see these guys coming through now, and they're both 17. Last year they would have been 60, and if we want to throw in two 16-year-olds and playing them every now and then in a title run, it's not going to happen. I think he only really wants to give that opportunity to those that are showing high promise and the ones that could actually be in the squad long term. I don't fully back him on that. I do think there's some occasions that we could have played other players, and also in terms of getting more value for the players that we have on our youth team, they need to play a bit earlier. But these two are special. Like, they're two of England's best youth players, never mind Arsenal, at that sort of age. And the two of them together, I just look, there's a maturity and intelligence from both of them, and a fearlessness as well, where they're coming into these games, they're just not looking phased about the fact of who they're playing against. And then at the same time, they're actually having a couple of little moments. Like, we saw that with Lewis Kelly not being afraid to be, he's like half Haaland's size, and he's up in his face or whatever, saying whatever. And then you've got Nwaneri as well. Like, there was the game last season when he came on against West Ham. Okay, the game was an easy game to come on, but he just looks so composed. And in pre-season as well, you look at him sometimes and you're like, it's like you're blinking or rubbing your eyes. Is that Odegaard, or and then you got two of them on the pitch in pre-season. It just looks great to think like where they can go. I think if Nwaneri gets enough minutes, which I think he will, I think he might get nominated for the Young Player of the Season, because it's a big shout, but if you consider, if we were to go win a title and the role that he could play in some of those games later on, that's not me putting all the expectation on him. I just think he's that good that he could make a big impact in a couple of games. But the main thing for now, the next couple of months, is get them integrated, get them playing, get them amongst the squad as much as possible, and get them on the pitch as much as possible. Then you've got a point where there are options on the bench that can actually come on and make an impact for the second half in the run-in. So, yeah, excited for both of them. And there's everything Arsenal about them. That's all I can say. It's just, excited.
Miles posted a picture of him as a kid, and we've all seen, I think, Nwaneri when he was younger. Both of them Arsenal fans. Actually, Nwaneri, I think, grew up very close to the Arsenal ground as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, love them both so much. And the fact that these are getting blooded already in games like these, when they go play this Bolton game midweek, they're going to feel like they own the pitch, but not in an arrogant kid way, but in if I faced Haaland, then I should be able to deal with this guy, and in just a full confidence in themselves. And I think that is testament to the environment that they find themselves in, because the dressing room is so mature compared to perhaps when Mustafi, Aubameyang, Pepe, these guys were just trolling around in the dressing room. And yeah, you young players can grow from that, but I think it's you get far less refined diamonds. You just get players with a lot of talent. But I feel like
doozies.
Yeah. But I feel like we will see in Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri, two young players who Arteta has known for a long time, and throughout their youth career, because the youth team play a similar way, they have been molded into players that Arteta is going to find incredibly useful moving forward.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to misses real quick. James, I'll start with you. And remember, it does not have to be an Arsenal player.
I don't have too much to say. I've already said my piece on this man. But Haaland, you are my loser for the way you behaved in that game. For a player with so much talent, I thought you stooped very low to behave in such a way. So you can take the loser crown this week.
I think that's a really good one. Again, you don't have to do all that, like just take the draw and go home, big guy. Like there's no need. But also, he already looks like a high school bully, like in a Pixar movie. So this looks especially bad for him to behave this way. But yeah, Ben, who is your miss?
So I've gone with an Arsenal player, and just hear me out. Just hear me out before you. Yeah. So mine is Ben White, right? And it's because when he came on, I've never been fully convinced with him in 1v1s. I think he's great. I love Ben White, and I've followed him since he was at Leeds and everything. I loved him, but the issue is when you've got these guys that are so good at taking on their man, and he allows that space or he doesn't time the jump well. I noticed as soon as Timber was off, obviously that meant White was directly against Grealish. And as soon as Grealish came on, before that, they never got into the box at all. They were trying to get into the box, but they were passing it around the edge. And Grealish came on, he just got that little bit closer a few times. He went round him, and then Havertz blocked a cross or something. And there's another couple of moments, and I'm just like watching it, like you're giving him too much space. And then in the end, the goal came from that. And I know it seems really nitpicky, but it's, for me, that's the reason why I wanted in a lot of these games, why last season or before you'd want Tomiyasu, and why now.
But we're dealing with fine margins, so I think it's fair to be nitpicky if a player is, as we've said already, if White doesn't get those small details right, then Timber's there, and then there's other players there. So yeah, it's good to keep him on his toes as well, because last season he didn't really have that backup. So one, respite, but two, yeah, just to make sure every single player in that team knows that their place isn't comfy.
Yeah, and I think that the competition in every position that we've got now, you look everywhere, and the one place is probably Saka, but we've now got Sterling that when he's up and running, that will be competition for him as well. So you've got competition in every position now, and hopefully for a lot of them, like White, I think he's going to have to step up, because when Timber was signed, I said he's coming to play right back. I think long term that's where he'll play. I think we only play left back because of Zinchenko not being the best defensively. But yeah, and I think he's a lot more complete. So as soon as he plays there, that might be his position, and then he's got to work hard to get it back. So, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that's a good one, and I did get the sense that this might be a shift in terms of what we do at right back moving forward, but we'll see. I mean, they're both great players. White, has a lot of drive, a lot of personality about him, so maybe he'll win it back when that time comes. My miss is Kyle Walker, because I spent the entire Euros furious with this guy for making Saka look awful, right? And giving him these really terrible passes and not offering that much going forward. And so to see him on the other side of this, for us to, reap some benefit from it is really nice, but also just kind of goes to my point that I've been making since the summer. This guy is over the hill, right? He was a little bit culpable for the Martinelli goal. He wanted to cry to the ref a little too long. We took advantage of it. And then the second goal, I think, is the most embarrassing moment for Manchester City in the last few years, where he's doing this little poking thing, and then Gabriel just runs right past him, just buries the header, and that's it. And that's just what is that? What are you doing? Gabriel said, "Someone smells like Spurs in here," and he went and put that ball away. So, if City want to keep on rolling out Kyle Walker at right back, be my guest. I think it's starting to prove to be a bit of a liability for them. So that is my miss. Okay. Before we get out of here, one last thing. 11s for Bolton. Rapid fire. James, I'll start with you.
Neto's cup tied, isn't he?
Yes.
All right. Raya, White if he's fit, I guess. Heaven, Calafiori, Lewis Skelly, Nwaneri, Jorginho, someone, Rice. Rice has had a game off. Sterling, Jesus, and Trossard. That sounds about right.
I think that works. Ben, how about you?
So I'm trying to rest like a few of the players. So I'm thinking Raya and goal, just because there's no one, and even worse, Setford's injured apparently, so even he can't play. I'm going Nichols at right back, then
Oh,
Timber,
fair, yeah.
yeah, then Timber and Kivior at centre back. Then left back, I was wanting to say Zinchenko, but I think he's injured as well. So I'll say Lewis Skelly, Jorginho, Nwaneri, and Rice, and then Sterling, Jesus, and Martinelli. But to be honest, thinking about how that last game went, Trossard's probably smarter because he'll be burnt out from that. But ideally, I just think Saka, Gabriel, Saliba, Havertz, White. I don't even want them to play 1 minute. Like I'd rather them just not even be
Also,
on the bench.
just quickly on your Martinelli point, like we could say it would do his confidence well, but we've got Southampton and Leicester in the league. I'd like to think hopefully he'll gain confidence in those games.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just at this early stage, there's no point playing these players when they played in such an intense game, and for some of them played in 3 in a row. So like just rest for like the week, you know. But yeah.
I think my lineup would be very similar to yours, Ben. Raya, Nichols. I mean Raya, but be careful. Please be careful. If someone's bearing down on you and you're going to put your body on the line, just maybe not. Raya, Nichols, Timber, Kivior. God damn you for being injured, Zincos. Miles Lewis Skelly, Jorginho, Nwaneri, Rice. I actually would probably go with Sego Jr. at right wing, and then Jesus, and then Sterling. Obviously have Martinelli on the bench in case that goes to shit, but I think that is the starting 11 that I would roll out. Okay, we'll put a bow on it there. We're about the hour 15 mark, a little bit over. There's a little bit over 3,000 of you watching, so please, do follow Ben on Twitter at Ben_Mattinson_. Please do follow James at AFC James. You can follow me at Shamsdale. Follow the pod at This Week Arsenal. If you're watching on YouTube, please do like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave the 5-star review. Really does help out. Just hit all the buttons and, join this little adventure that we're on. Come, hang out with us and just listen to us talk about Arsenal, be a part of the discussion. We really do love having you here. It really does mean a lot. So thank you for taking the time to be here. Okay, cool. Well, we will probably talk to you after this week's game. We're playing Leicester this next weekend, right? Yeah. Okay, we'll be back after the Leicester match, which I'm feeling pretty good about for obvious reasons. So until then, be a gooner, not a goon. Until then, we will talk to you soon. So take care and bye. Bye.
Maybe we'll have a good surprise for you.